This video is about Milan's Linate Airport and its long and sometimes tragic history, dating back to the years when it looked like seaplanes would be the future of civil aviation. Milan is relatively unusual as it has a major international airport just 3.5 miles from the city centre, measured from the Duomo to the airport perimeter by Google Maps. When I lived in Milan, I would hop onto the number 73 bus with a regular bus ticket to go to the airport on a Sunday to buy an English newspaper. Linate Airport is owned by the local authority of Milan, which, for good and bad, means it has some of the classic features of Italian state ownership, underinvestment and menefreghismo, a uniquely Italian word which can be translated as not giving a damn, but we'll come to that shortly. The original airport in Milan, Taliedo, was built in 1910, even nearer the city centre, but by the 1930s it was clear to the Italian authorities that it lacked the necessary facilities and something bigger was needed, especially something that could accommodate seaplanes. Very little remains of the original airport of Taliedo, apart from a war memorial to the employees of an aviation company that was based there, and a couple of surviving buildings. The fascist government liked to be seen as embracing the modern age of machinery and actively supported Italian aviation. Air Minister Italo Balbo organised the so-called Cruise of the Decade in 1933, in which 24 seaplanes flew a round trip from Rome to New York. Balbo received a warm welcome in the United States, especially from the large Italian-American population, and told the cheering crowds, "Be proud you are Italians. Mussolini has ended the era of humiliations." The new airport of Linate was built a mile further east of Taliedo, with the idroscalo for seaplanes and a runway for what we would now consider as regular planes. It's interesting that there isn't really a single English word for idroscalo. It's seaplane airport, which says something about the importance of seaplanes to fascist Italy. However, although some planes did use the idroscalo, it was clear by the end of the 1930s that its future lay in recreation and sport, with rowing championships held there before the Second World War, and the plans for seaplanes were never fully realised. It remains today a place of leisure for the Milanese, and concerts and sporting events continue to be held at the so-called Sea of Milan. As for the airport of Linate, it went from strength to strength, and was redeveloped in the late 1950s, although it lacked the space to compete with Milan's other international airport of Malpensa, which, although much further away, carries more passengers and can accommodate the larger planes for long-distance flights. But Linate remains the most popular choice for short-haul flights, as it's just so convenient. Most of the major flag carriers fly there, including British Airways, Air France and ITA, the successor to the now defunct Alitalia. Linate has limited scope for development, with the main railway lines to Milan to the north and the River Lambro to the south. It also has the Canzo Cemetery to the east as a modern memento mori to nervous air travellers as they taxi to the end of the runway. I can't think of another airport which offers its passengers such a sight. I like Linate, but for me at least it will always be associated with the disaster of the 8th of October 2001, not just for the loss of life, but because it was so avoidable, with the local authority of Milan failing to invest time and money in the airport. There is in fact a short second runway at Linate for light aircraft to the west, but private jets needing the longer runway have to cross the airport to access the main runway. On the fateful morning, which like so many in Milan was affected by thick fog, one such private jet, a Cessna Citation, taxied across the airport following the ground lights. The control tower cleared the plane to cross the main runway at the exact time Scandinavian Airlines MD-87 was taking off. It struck the Cessna but carried on flying a few metres off the ground before crashing into an airport building, killing 4 people there and all 114 on the planes. It took the airport's emergency services 26 minutes to reach the burning Cessna on the runway, and you can imagine the state of confusion. In the subsequent investigations, the poor operating practices at the airport were revealed. The ground lights the Cessna was following should have been set by the control tower so that red lights would stop planes from crossing the runway, but they were not working properly and were permanently set to red, so it was standard practice to ignore them. The ground radar had been decommissioned and a new radar had been bought but was not yet installed. Even the motion sensors had been turned off because of numerous false alarms. The end result was the control tower did not know where exactly the Cessna was, but cleared it to cross the main runway all the same. 9 people were eventually convicted for involuntary homicide, including people from air traffic control, the airport authorities and the city council. The memorial to the victims is in the neighbouring Parco Forlanini, where 118 beech trees were planted around this monument by a Swedish sculptor. As a result of the Linate accident, improvements were made to airport safety both at Linate and elsewhere, so we can fly in and out of Linate without a care in the world, although I'm still not sure about having a cemetery next to a runway. Perhaps the safest thing is to do what I did, take the bus 73, go there to buy a newspaper, and read it by the lake, intended for seaplanes. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to see more videos about all things Italian, please do click the like button, subscribe, and do things which are friendly to the all-powerful YouTube algorithm.